Hey crafty friends, in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can use your small scraps of paper and create these beautiful birthday cake designs that are so unique, fun, and giftable. These are the kind of pieces you can pop into a frame and gift to the special people in your life, like your mom, for instance. We are creating whimsical layered birthday cakes using scraps that would normally get tossed aside, and by the end, I'll show you how I turn them into colorful little pieces of art. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I have all of my scrap pieces of paper organized here. I usually keep my scraps in a mesh bag like this, and I went through and pulled out all of the smaller pieces that are really too small to do anything with. We are going to create layered birthday cakes using all of these different colored scraps. I organized everything in rainbow order, and we are going to take each color and create sheets that we'll later use for our cake layers. I'm going to start with the purple layer first. For the adhesive, I'm using matte medium as my glue. I'm placing a scrap piece of paper underneath to protect my surface, and then I'm using a piece of cardstock to apply all of my scraps onto. With the larger scraps of paper, I like to tear some of the edges because it adds more interest and texture, and for the smaller bits, I usually keep them the same size that they are. I'm going to apply matte medium a little at a time to the page and start layering my scraps down. I add some medium to the back of the scraps as well and then pat everything down to make sure it's adhered really well onto the cardstock. This is meant to look like a collage, so don't be too precise with your paper placement. You are going to keep repeating this process by adding pieces and layering on top. I love this so much because I don't like waste of any kind. So being able to find a way to create beautiful pieces of art using even the smallest scraps left in my stash truly makes my maker's heart happy. This actually doesn't take terribly long to dry, but for good measure, I like to allow at least 24 hours to make sure everything is completely dry and set. So here are all of the colorful sheets specific to each color, and depending on how many scraps you have of each color will determine whether you get a full sheet or not. And as you can see here, I didn't have enough orange or purple to completely fill a page, but honestly just work with what you have. I cut out little templates for each layer of my cake. I'm pretty much going for an Alice in Wonderland inspired whimsical cake look here. So then I went into my collage papers and started choosing colors for each layer. Once you've selected your papers and the colors you want for each layer, flip them upside down, trace each template layer, and cut them out. You can use as many layers as you want for your cake. It's your design, so get creative with it. I'm using a scrap piece of cardstock and gluing all of my cake layers down. Once that dries, I cut around the entire cake shape. Now it's time to decorate our cakes. So to decorate them, I cut circles and little shapes from scraps using paper punches. I also die cut borders from bright papers and pattern papers. I use the Slim Borders 2 dies that come with all of these different edges and borders, and I also use the Variety Edges dies with the curved and scalloped designs, both from scrapbook.com. Now I'm just going to start playing around with all of the different elements, trying to see what colors I want to go with each other, what's going to play well with each other. These are not meant to be precise in any way. They're meant to be fun, colorful, whimsical, and a little wonky. And the wonkier, the better. Some pieces I glued down crooked, some angled upward or downward, and some hanging off the edges. There's really no rhyme or reason to any of it, and honestly, all of that just adds to the character and charm of each cake. Once you have your layers in place, trim off the edges, but you can still leave some pieces long or uneven because again, the wonkier the better. Then I'm adding some of my paper punch circles, cutting some in half, and I also added adhesive gemstones for sparkles. So you could also use pearls as well if you have any, sequins, things like that. For the finishing touches, I'm adding pops of color using bright colors. I'm adding dots, little lines, tiny designs, and details. This kind of will act like the frosting on the cake, and it really does bring everything to life. After that's done, I set everything aside to dry for at least overnight. Here are all of our cakes decorated and thoroughly dried. They're so colorful and sparkly, but we're going to create the candles that are going to go on them. So in this sherbet paper pad from scrapbook.com, I found a pattern paper that instantly reminded me of wonky candles, and I thought it worked perfectly with our whimsical cakes. I cut little strips from the paper for the candles, and for the flames, I used a leftover piece of rose gold glitter paper, punched that out with my teardrop paper puncher, And then I also used part of a gold bubble mailer and cut larger flame shapes from that. Layered the glitter flame pieces on top and glued everything together. So I have 5 cakes here and I'm adding different amounts of candles to each one. Some cakes will have 2, some cakes will have 4, some will have 3. So it's just kind of dependent on the look that you're going for. Before I glue the candles down, I like to orient them on my mat, and I like to have them at different heights and angles. So some are going to be leaning toward each other, some leaning away. Again, that playful, uneven look really makes them feel more whimsical. Now that the candles are on the cakes, I'm going to show you what you can actually do with the finished cakes. So I ended up turning mine into little pieces of art using mixed media backgrounds I already had in my stash. This was from Easter this year that I used shaving cream and acrylic paint. So I have my video. I'll link it down below in the description. I also used some background papers from this Jane Davenport paper pad I had. And these kinds of papers are really amazing, especially if you love that mixed media look, but don't necessarily want the mess or the hassle because they instantly make everything look polished and artistic. And it looks like you spent hours creating that background when really it's just pattern paper, pattern scrapbook paper in the back. So I attached my cakes onto the backgrounds, added holographic sequins for sparkle, and then matted everything onto black cardstock. You could create an entire gallery wall or exhibit with these gorgeous little cakes. I actually framed one and gifted it to my mom for Mother's Day, and she absolutely loved it. I know it can feel really overwhelming when you have so many scraps on hand, but you don't want to throw them out. And projects like this are such a great reminder that even the tiniest pieces can become something beautiful. With creativity, layers, gems, texture, and pops of color, you can create one of a kind projects that become meaningful keepsakes you'll cherish forever, either you or your loved ones. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you all again in my crafty corner very soon. Take care, friends. Bye.